Hello everyone and welcome back to Whitley Penn Talks. I am so excited to release today's episode because today is Nexia Day 2020. Now you may be wondering, what is Nexia Day and what is Nexia, or maybe even what does this mean for me? So before I hand it over to our amazing speakers today, I wanted to introduce Nexia and give some background on what this organization has meant to our firm. Nexia International is an accounting network comprised of firms from all over the world. It was established in 1971, and today there are 258 member firms across 122 different countries. We are so thankful to be a member of this organization, and we wanted to share what this relationship has meant to us over the years. This year, we have chosen the value enduring relationships to highlight our involvement with Nexia and to celebrate how those relationships have benefited our firm and our clients over the years. So, to dive in and discuss how Whitley Penn is able to collaborate with firms and offer global client service, we have Larry Autrey, our managing partner, and we have Felix Lozano, director of audit. The two of them have significant experience working with Nexia member firms to deliver international services for our clients. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to them to introduce themselves, talk a little bit more about what Nexia has meant to our firm, and tell some stories about their professional and personal experiences while working abroad. And with that, we say Happy Nexia Day 2020. We are so thankful that you tuned in today, and we look forward to further collaboration in the future. Now I will hand it over to them to get started.
Hi, Felix Lozano here with Whitley Penn, and I'm excited to join our managing partner Larry Autrey today in this version of the Whitley Penn Talks podcast for Nexia. So to get started, Larry, take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself.
I don't think I need a couple of minutes. That's a pretty short story. I grew up in Texas, right here in the DFW area, and went to Texas Tech. When I graduated from there, I went to work for Ernst & Winnie, which later became Ernst & Young. And 10 years into that, joined Whitley Penn, and been here 25 years, and been the managing partner for the last 21. So, a pretty simple story.
Pretty simple story, pretty long one there when you think about your career. That's a few years in the business. So my name's Felix Lozano. I'm the director of audit for Whitley Penn. Pretty similar to Larry. I'm a Texas native, TCU graduate though. I had a small stint at Texas Tech. 7 years with Arthur Young before it merged with Ernst & Winnie, which really brought Larry and I together in our relationship. And I guess in that relationship, Larry, as we both kind of migrated, talk a little bit about how you and I got here to Whitley Penn, and the focus today is on enduring relationships. So let's go back 25 years and let you kind of explain that.
Maybe let's go back 31 years from the first time we met. We worked together at Ernst & Young when the two firms merged, and I think in that 31 years we realized that while Felix had an audit bent and I had a little tax bent, we were both enjoyed meeting clients, enjoyed creating new business, and I think that's really what kicked off a relationship that again is now 31 years old. So it made it really easy 25 years ago when we decided that the right answer was to join Whitley Penn, that we'd join on the exact same day, and that's kind of a funny story of how that happened as well. Back 25 years ago, I met.
You've been going to church with him for a long time.
Yeah, 25 years ago, I made a decision as I was leaving New York to come back to the DFW area to work, that I wanted to change firms, and I wanted to be able to join a firm that we could build. And I had gone to church with Glenn Whitley and Jim Penn for 10 or 15 years, and Glenn had always said, if you get ready to leave the big firm, come join the little firm with us and let's build something. So when I joined Whitley Penn, the first thing that I did is I went and looked at the firm and realized we needed an audit practice, and we needed a good audit practice in order to compete at the level we wanted to. And the guy that I knew at the time that could help create that was someone I'd known for a long time, and that was Felix. And so I went, and I remember him telling me, "You're going to have to convince my wife that this is a good idea in order for us to move." And so over dinner, we talked through kind of the reason that it made sense for us to leave a firm of 60,000 people and join a firm that was less than 30 at that point to try to build something. And I think a relationship that we had of 6 years knowing each other helped build the next 25 years that we've got going forward.
Yeah, I still remember that dinner at 8-0 in Fort Worth, us sitting down and you making the pitch. And I was a little caught off guard because obviously Whitley Penn was literally less than 30 people. And, we're both on this trajectory at a big firm, but we'd had a good enough relationship. I trusted you enough to know that you wouldn't be taking me to a small firm if you didn't have some type of vision. So I think that enduring relationship really kind of catapulted both of us into this trajectory at Whitley Penn. But Larry, as the managing partner right now at Whitley Penn, and you go back 25 years, you were seeing things in the marketplace, and our relationship got us there. But then you started creating a lot of other relationships, not only at the firm, but outside the firm. So let's kind of start moving that enduring relationship perspective to how we got to Nexia and what was it that you saw that made this happen?
I think that was a period where the firm needed to move from the whole concept when we came together, when Felix and I kind of over dinner dreamed what Whitley Penn could be like, it was a firm that could compete at any level with any size firm, but had the local touch. And so again, it was easy to have a local touch when you were a Fort Worth and Hurst office with less than 30 people, but it was hard to have an international reach to do that. And Roy Hoffman reached out to me to talk about the fact that they needed a firm like ours that had the expertise we had so that their clients from other countries that came into the U.S. had someone they could rely on. Roy's firm was in New York, a big firm relative to ours, big public company practice, things that we didn't do, and he needed someone in the South, someone with energy expertise, someone that could do the things that we did. And Roy and I, over multiple dinners, as he always reminded, the only memory that anybody has is the people who buy the first round, and so he always bought the first round of drinks. And we had a great long-term relationship for all of Roy's life.
Yeah, we did, and it's interesting, Larry, because I remember again sitting at that lunch meeting at the Fort Worth Club, and you making the presentation to the partners at that time of why you thought it would be important to join Nexia. And I still remember all the partners going, wow, an international perspective would be so beneficial to our clients. But I think some of the partners were taken back. You and I had done enough travel in our predecessor firm that international didn't bother us too much. But I remember I was personally excited because I was like, okay, this is something I really want to do. And I think I was probably the first person to go, I think we should do it. And we were able to corral all the partners, but more importantly, I think I was pretty fortunate because the partners were like, yeah, okay, if that's really what y'all want to do, y'all go do it. Let us see how it works. And do you remember our first international trip together with Nexia?
I don't know, was that Montreal?
Montreal it was. Good memory. I'm testing you today. Interestingly enough, when you think about enduring relationships, they always start uniquely, but there's also a lot of investment to make it enduring. So I think this is kind of funny. You may not find it funny. But I remember in Montreal, we had half the day free open before we went to our dinner. Do you remember what we did?
I don't.
Okay, so here's what we did. We went for a walk through the park. We were both energetic, outgoing people, and we were new to Nexia. And you said, let's take some time to walk and talk about some of these people in the meeting and what we want to talk about tonight to really find our way and our groove. So I just thought it was interesting. Here I am with a guy I've known for a long time. And we're just taking a stroll through the park talking about strategy for dinner. So that was really interesting. But with that strategy, Larry, of what we talked about, one of the things that you were pretty adamant about in your vision was, how do we get plugged in to Nexia? What do we personally do? And your recommendation was, Felix, you really ought to try to get on that audit committee. And, Nexia is what? Like, we got 122 countries represented. We've got probably close to 3,400 partners in all those countries. And so when you think about the scale of Nexia from that perspective, 727 offices, 36,000 employees, there's probably not a country in this world, developed or undeveloped, where you don't know somebody. Would that be a fair statement?
I think that's probably true. And, I always think about that Healy's proposal, where, people were, at Ernst & Young, we had a book that had all of these names, but I didn't know any of those people. And so I think the mission for Nexia was to develop relationships with every country we might do business with in the world, so that in this particular case, we were in a proposal and I said, we know this person who runs this German office. If you want to pick up the phone right now, they will take our call. And I bet you can't do that with your Ernst & Young partners. So I think developing those relationships with people in countries around the world that you never know when you're going to need them for a client relationship was key for us.
Yeah, and I think that's, Larry, that's an interesting point of the investment that Whitley Penn's made in Nexia, because it wasn't very common for a firm our size at that time to invest in two people to go to this annual conference. And then when we were there, we both had specific agendas. You made a beeline to all the managing partners. I made a beeline to the audit committee. And we worked really hard at trying to know as many different people from the countries. And that's a huge investment of time. And like with any enduring relationship, there's some that just get sticky. So when you think about sticky relationships that have endured over our, Larry, 15, 16, maybe 17 years with Nexia now, what are some of those sticky, enduring relationships at the managing partner level that you've been able to experience?
I have no idea. I can't think of any names right now.
Yeah, you can. I'll help you think of one.
Okay.
There's obviously CLA, managing partner CLA today.
Right.
Denny has been a really great friend of yours. And the reason I asked that question, Larry, is because you've always been really good with the Nexia managing partners to use them as a kitchen cabinet, a sounding board, if you will. So when I think of people like Denny, and then I go to Cone Resnick, that's the other firm where you had really tight relationships with those managing partners.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. The managing partners, sometimes it's the managing partner, sometimes it's someone in their firm that is the person that I just clicked with at some meeting. And I think, when I think about the CLA managing partner, Cone's managing partners over the years, those are key people. What I learned from those is how important it is to spend time developing relationships, developing business with people, because the easiest way to get to know them is share a client together. And so I think Smith & Williamson in the UK is a great example of that. They've always been a great place for our people to go learn from, a great place for us to learn from, and a firm that I mentor a little bit with them in terms of what we might look like someday.
Yeah. For me, Larry, going through all the relationships and having sat on the Nexia audit committee for about 6 years, I had the opportunity twice a year to meet with groups that came from all over the world, and I was able to create that sticky relationship with people out of Australia, Germany, South America, Brazil, Italy, France. And one of the things that sticks with me on those sticky relationships is that common client, but also just having a place to go if we were going to push work outbound for help in a foreign country. So now I want to get you to talk a little bit about some of the relationships that may have been developed over the years with you and a foreign partner of a firm because of that type of outbound, inbound referral. So let me give you some help here. One that I know that's really strong for you is our neighbor down south in Mexico, Alfredo. So when you think about relationships like that, what are some of the unique characteristics of an enduring relationship in addition to the client? Anything stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I think all of us are running firms, and so whether it's in Mexico or Sweden or Germany or the UK, there are a lot of things that are common about our business, and it allows us an opportunity to talk about, share things that are struggling in our firm and things that may be struggling in the other partner's firm, and an opportunity to do that. Those become, because you become so trusting, become relationships that over the years created relationships between our spouses and us, and it's a place that it would be hard for me to go to Mexico City without calling Alfredo. I'd feel uncomfortable that I had let him down by not doing that. And the same thing in most of the other countries, most of the other large countries, is I'd feel bad if I didn't go. It's like a friend,
Exactly.
that I missed out on talking to.
Exactly. And that reminds me, Larry, today you owe a phone call to Jason Price regarding a need for an attorney in Arizona. We don't even have an office in Arizona, but Jason Price is all the way up in Canada, and his partner, Brian McGee, who I've gotten to know really well over the years through Nexia. But that firm never surprises me because they're always looking to you for guidance on any U.S. matter, whether they know we can help or not. They start with you. So I think that's a good characteristic of that enduring relationship of what you've built over the years.
Well, I think it's interesting because there are obviously firms in the world that wouldn't do that, but developing a relationship with people, and candidly, that relationship is usually not in a meeting; it's in a bar, and it's at the end of the day talking about needs of their clients and needs of ours, and I think we get comfortable. If there was anything going on in Canada, I know someone could take care of it, and I think Jason and Brian have felt the same way about us.
Yeah, particularly with that firm, Brian's been instrumental in assisting some of our U.S. tax clients, vice versa, Whitley Penn helping them with their U.S. clients. But when I think about the different countries, and you touched on it a minute ago, about traveling into the country and almost feeling guilty not calling these people. A lot of my travel now, personally, when I'm in those countries, I kind of reach out to those partners that I know saying, hey, I'm in your country. If you're available, that's great. Or my kids will be in your country. Can they use you as a safety net? And for me, that's always been the huge benefit to know that I'm okay in a foreign country because I got somebody I know that's well respected. So that's always really helpful. Well, that's good, Larry. That's it. I can go down a list of all the countries that you and I have talked about, but there's one that keeps coming up in my mind of an individual that you and I both got very close with. Percy Italia out of India.
Good guy.
Anything you want to say about Percy?
You want to talk about a humble guy who's got a great little firm in India that would do anything in the world for us. That's a market that, I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to say there's 500,000 Indians that are employed by U.S. accounting firms. And from a competitor standpoint, we need the ability to know that market. And Percy has been one of those guys, again, as humble a guy as he can be, but he can help us with anything going on in that market. And if we wanted him to build an office for Whitley Penn there, it'd be there in 60 days. And I'd feel good that everything was handled.
Yeah, the enduring relationship aspect of the partners we've met over the years, Larry, as I reflected today getting ready for this, Percy kept coming to mind because his wife was always with him and she has since passed. But I can still remember the 2 or 3 trips I took to India. One was with you for the annual conference in New Delhi. And then I took a separate trip for the audit committee to hold a meeting there. Funny story, my luggage didn't make it, so I had to go buy all clothes for 2 days And then I'm sitting in the bar getting ready to go to the airport, and my luggage shows up right when I'm leaving. But on that trip, Persia was kind enough to say, I want you to come back to India. I want to take you to my city where I live in Hyderabad. I want to take you to my sock factory that I own. And I want you to come to my house to meet my wife and my family. And it's very common in the Indian culture that 2, 3, 4 generations live together. I mean, that's what they do. And I made that separate trip back because Percy wanted to get to know me. And that was just such a strong feeling of just, somebody going out of the way to say, hey, come to my country. Let me show you around where I live. So, I'm glad you remember Percy.
Yeah, I think, when you think about what Nexia has done, I don't have any idea. I mean, Whitley Penn was less than 30 people when we joined. It's, 500 and some odd today.
Yep.
I don't know how much of it you can attribute to Nexia. I think you can attribute a huge percentage of it to enduring relationships, in that the partners that are here are people that we knew from other firms that we worked with.
Yep.
The clients that are here today are clients that were with friends, or their friends referred to us. And so, I think when you think of where we've come, it's 100% related to enduring relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And some part of that is these Nexia relationships as well.
Yeah, and Larry, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about all the partners, primarily at Whitley Penn, and some senior managers that we've introduced to these relationships at Nexia we started spreading out that knowledge a long time ago. And so we'll talk in a minute about some of the unique proposal opportunities we've had that we've pushed off to other partners through introductions. But before we go there, I do want to talk a little bit about the relationships that we create at a different level. And that's really through the secondment program. And I can remember early on, I think I was really oohing and awing about the fact that we could send somebody to a foreign country for 3 to 5 months to go work. Had no idea what that entailed, but I thought that was really cool. And I think you and I both always asked, can you send a partner for 3 to 5 months? That wouldn't work. But we went down that path. We committed with our secondment program. And while she's no longer here, I remember Karen A. being the first one to go to Perth, Australia on the first secondment. And since then, just to kind of refresh both of our memories, we've had a really close working relationship with Australia and London. So from your perspective, Larry, the secondment program, what do you think that does for our younger team members? And it's typically a senior with 3 to 5 years experience and sometimes a manager with 6 or 7 years.
I think it probably does several things. The first is many of those people don't have any international travel experience. It allows them to understand a culture that they may not know other than that. It allows them to get comfortable with other cultures, whether it's in our own market or around the world. Allows a person to be more worldly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that does 2 things. That makes them great at what they do at Whitley Penn. It also competes with the largest firms in the world who use that as a recruiting tool. The reality is, you and I grew up in that large firm environment, probably didn't know anybody who went overseas for an engagement, but we've sent, 7 or 8 people overseas. So I think in terms of, much like the knowing the people in the local markets,
mm-hmm.
getting our people some world knowledge is huge and creates a very different firm than the local firm that we started out with.
Definitely when they come back, man, their eyes are so open. They realize that the U.S. outlet, it's a different outlet in every other country, so buy your adapters. The currency exchange, the language. It's interesting, even on the language, Larry. I know that, from my travels, while English is, the international language, I get it. You can't help but learn some of the tidbits from the different countries you go to. But I do know that with Australia and London, with their busy seasons being off peak from us, our people have really enjoyed anywhere from 3 to 5 months. And then on top of that, Larry, they get a chance to spend some personal time in the country, getting more culturalized. And you're right, from a competitive advantage in recruiting, they've all come back. And for the most part, the big chunk of them are still here. And with rotation, people rotate out. But yeah, they come back really energized. And to this day, as I look at the list of people who've gone abroad, 3 of them are partners. And they went when they were seniors. So we got some stickiness to that enduring relationship with our people through the relationships they've created. So yeah, I'm glad we talked about that secondment program. That's such a valuable program. Hey, let me take a twist real quick, talking about the secondment program. How do you think that's going to be affected by COVID-19?
You know, it's gotta affect it in the short term. Hopefully, it's a short term effect for it, and we get back doing it very soon again. It still doesn't take away the need. It only makes it more difficult. Much of kind of what life is like right now. People still need an audit, still need their tax return done. It's just harder to get it done than it was before. So I think it's the same way with secondments. We still need our people to see the world. Mm-hmm. It just may be deferred a year.
So when you think about COVID-19, Larry, with your role in Nexia now, which you're the North American chairman, how has the COVID affected your role? And you're also on the board at Nexia. So what has that done to you, and how has enduring relationships been impacted?
Well, I think Nexia is, we've worked really hard in both at North America and globally to try to continue to add value in a time where we can't stand in front of each other or sit in front of each other and talk. Our North American offices, we've had about a 95% attendance rate on our calls just to talk about how the COVID is affecting each one of us right now and how we're working through it. And I think it's always valuable to talk about what each other's doing in a difficult time like this. It's obviously something none of us have been through. Mm-hmm. So having friends that can help you through that, I think, is key. And so we've had a great relationship in doing that. And then globally, I think it's been interesting. Nexia's had webcasts on various topics for years. The attendance rate on those is through the roof now because people are able to use. So it might be interesting. And, some of this is generational. Our generation, we like to sit in front of people. There is a generation that really would rather soak up the knowledge that Nexia has to offer via webcasts and other methods. And so we might find that this is a turning point and a point where our younger people are more involved in Nexia than they ever have been because they get the opportunity to do that without being forced to travel internationally, which may be uncomfortable for them initially, without taking time, a week out of their schedule to go do it, because they can do it in a quick 1 hour, 2 hour, 8 hour webcast.
Yeah, recently, thanks to your nomination, I think, I'm now chair of the Nexia International Digital Committee, which is going to be, looking at technology, collaboration, tools, leverage, buying power for the network. And I've not had a committee meeting yet, but I've sat on a chairs committee call, and you're absolutely right. The webcasts are through the roof, the attendance. And so they're getting traction of people getting more connected to create a relationship that might not have been created. But I think this COVID may extend and create an enduring relationship through a webcast, as odd as that is. Because one of the things we did talk about, Larry, and I know y'all are discussing it at the board, is how do we get back, or do we ever get back to face-to-face meetings for committees? And I'm kind of like in your boat that I think face-to-face meetings are important to build that relationship. But I also agree with you what you said earlier, which is the real meeting happens after the meeting at the bar and at the restaurant, when you're able to really dive in and know that other person. And you just don't get that on a 30-minute, 1-hour webcast or Teams or a Zoom. So it's going to be interesting to see how we navigate through all that. But you're right, for the younger generations, it's a different learning opportunity, and to see what kind of enduring relationships they're going to create. So real quick, Larry, so talk about a little bit on the Nexia meetings. How often do they typically meet, and how do they create enduring relationships? I know it's through meetings and restaurants and after hours, but how many times a year does Nexia meet?
Generally we've had one North American meeting annually and one global meeting annually, and I think those were the big meetings. And then if you add in the tax committees and the A&A committee and now in your case the digitization committee, as the committees come together, I think they begin to take special expertise and create some volume at a level that will allow our technology people to coordinate with technology people around the world where we've never had that happen before. We're getting some desires for more of that in North America. We'll see we have a great A&A committee now. I think we'll see a tax committee. We'll see a digitization committee in the U.S. And so I think maybe more short face-to-face meetings will begin to happen as the country or world opens back up again. But I also envision that we'll do more Zoom and Teams meetings than we ever have. It saves on travel, saves on time, and in a lot of cases you can get the same information across, maybe not the same relationship, but it may be up to us to develop those relationships above and beyond this.
As you were talking about, the relationship aspect of it, I keep coming back to one of the taglines for Nexia, which was closer to you. The whole purpose of the network is to get us closer to our clients. Even when we can't be in that foreign country, we bring a relationship in to be closer to them. So as I think about that, something that kind of came out of Nexia maybe 2 years ago, and I think you had just gotten on the board or just prior, was this whole concept of Nexia Day. Can you talk a little bit about Nexia Day and what we're trying to achieve as a network with Nexia Day?
I think Nexia Day is really, in my mind, it's twofold. It's an opportunity to get more of the firm involved in Nexia and understand it a little bit. So from a local standpoint, I think it's helpful for more people to know what our involvement in Nexia is and what Nexia is. And then I think globally, it's an opportunity for people to know who Nexia is. So it's probably all PR, but I think there's some local PR and there's some global PR that allows just taking one day out of the year to do something charitable, or in this case, just an opportunity to send a video of what we're doing to let people know who Nexia is.
Yeah, as I look back at last year, when I think the last 2 years, Nexia has pushed really hard for every firm to be a contributing factor in the little community. And I think last year we did the food banks in all markets throughout Texas, all 5 of our markets. And I think everybody who participated in that, Larry, felt really good about giving back to the community. So you're right. I think it's local, but then I think globally, Nexia is trying to indicate we're a global network making an impact all around the world, one day a year. So I've been impressed. It's an investment, but I think we're able to pull our staff in and help them understand why these enduring relationships really matter globally. Well, that's good. We've talked a lot. We haven't talked about client success stories yet. So I do want to take just a couple of minutes and as we bring this to a close and talk about a couple of success stories. You want to go first, or would you like me to throw one in?
Yeah.
Probably there's 2 that stand out in mind. One I know you're very familiar with. The other really came out of the blue. And this happened to be back in 2015, Larry, after we had an acquisition with Cecil Jones' firm, Jones Baggett. And one of their senior managers, Kyle Willie, came over, and everybody in that firm was so excited about this merger, trying to get involved, and they didn't know anything about Nexia. But Kyle Willie took it to heart to try to understand something about Nexia. And so as he got more involved, talking with all of us, he just happened to be at a conference talking about internal controls. It was actually a fraud conference. And he just happened to be sitting next to the director of internal audit for Ecobat. And they were talking about the challenges they were having with the big four worldwide. Ecobat is a large producer of sulfuric acid, polypropylene, sodium sulfate, acid, and silver. And Kyle just kind of brought it out of the blue, saying, by the way, we have a global network called Nexia, and if there's ever an opportunity, we'd love to be able to see how we could help. And that director of internal audit called Kyle the next day and said, we would really like to see how you could help us in all these countries. And the story goes like this. They were looking for help around the world, not in Texas. So what is the benefit to Kyle Willie wanting to go out of his way to help a company that's not going to give us any business, doesn't know anything about Nexia, knows we're a part of it, but has heard you and I and other partners talk about the success of the relationships? Kyle goes on and says, what do I do with this? And I was like, help him with the proposals. Kyle goes on to create a proposal structure for France, United Kingdom, Australia, South Africa, the Netherlands, all without any work coming to Whitley Penn. He does this over a 2-year period. He generates almost, if I'm not mistaken, close to $700,000 to $900,000 of fees for other countries. And he didn't have an enduring relationship other than with Whitley Penn. And it wasn't really that enduring because he was new in the merger. But like we were talking earlier, Larry, about the investment in an enduring relationship, there's got to be some investment at the beginning. And Kyle made that investment. And it's one of the amazing success stories. You and I got to present it at South Africa last year as a success story. And as a result of being humble and selfless and giving, Kyle flipped that around to where now Ecobat has given our firm several $100,000 of work that we do now here in the U.S. And that's just one of those great success stories where I think Nexia was this backdrop that didn't let us down. They knew Larry, they knew Whitley Penn, they didn't know Kyle. But the minute Kyle put in that email, hey, I work with Larry and Felix, the countries didn't let us down. So the Ecobat success story with Kyle and how it finally paid off with Whitley Penn is just attribute to strong relationships through the firm. The last success story I'll talk about really quick, and Larry, you know this one. This is from our good friend Louis Wong, California. Louis still with us? I don't think he's with us anymore. But God, what a great guy. So again, here's another example of a firm in California who knows that Whitley Penn does an enormous amount of litigation support. And he calls Larry saying, hey, I've got a client based out of Hong Kong, and they're going through a divorce, and I need some help. And Larry's like, man, we got an FLVS department. Let me flip it over there. And we kind of worked it over to Autumn. And long story short, she works with a couple in Hong Kong that's getting divorced. They have a U.S. operation that needs evaluation and questionable on the valuation. And who would have thought that you'd have to testify at midnight in the Dallas office in a Hong Kong court in a divorce case? And Autumn was up here with some of her team members at midnight on a Sunday night. But again, I think it's another example of an enduring relationship that Whitley Penn's be able to create with other firms that gives them the confidence that we won't let you down, and even if it requires a midnight testimony, we'll be there for you. So those are just two really interesting success stories, and I'm sure we both have plenty more to share.
Yeah, I think the first one maybe we did was a client that came over from a relationship in our prior firm, and they had what's it called? Call center business around the world, and we were doing local work, but all the international work was done by someone else. And Nexia allowed us to do all of that work by using our Nexia affiliates around the world. And it was a fairly easy, as it turned out, thing to do that made a client, probably a client that was a smaller client, become a really, really large client because of our abilities.
Yeah. That's a client that's been with us for such a long time and still to this day a client, and enjoy them. So I'll give you just a couple of seconds, Larry, to bring us to a conclusion with some closing thoughts. But I do want to share, a personal story that, I've shared with the firm before because of Nexia. When we travel all over the world, it's nice to know somebody in a foreign country. But if you ever get in trouble, it's even nicer. And I just happened to be on vacation in Austria, and I can remember, barreling down one of those highways at a pretty fast speed. Everybody else was driving fast. I just happened to be in the rental car. That was obvious. Had no idea I was being ticketed. So I get back to the U.S. 4 months later. I kept getting these notices from Austria of a citation. And it was in their native language, and I couldn't read it, and I kept throwing them away. And finally, I got a letter that said, "This is the final notice before levy." So I said, I got to get some help here. So I remember calling up, I believe it was Harold in Vienna, and we sent him the letter, and he writes back saying, "Dear Felix, you're being summoned to court with failure to not pay a speeding fine, of which the penalty could be jail." And I typed back immediately, "Harold, I can't come to Austria, but I will gladly pay whatever fine is." He said, "Felix," he said, "I've known you for a long time. We'll be glad to handle the fine, the paperwork, and the attendance in court on your behalf." And it's a pretty touching story, for a guy to go out of his way to pay a $150 fine. And I even offered, I said, "Let me at least pay you back." He said, "No, when I come to Texas, if I get a speeding ticket, I know you'll do the same for me." He's yet to come to Texas. But that's just another example of one of those enduring relationships. If I'd have never known him, if I'd never been part of Nexia, who would I have called? I'd have just been up a creek. But yeah, so it's been a fun ride.
I'm thankful for the relationships that have been developed over the years, and I always say it's been a good economic decision for us. We get more back than we pay out to Nexia in a year, but personally, if we never did, the relationships are worth all of it. So I think it's been a neat thing for the firm. It's been a great business decision for us to make, and I'm happy that we got to talk about it today. So I think that brings the podcast to a close. Happy Nexia Day 2020, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the episode of Whitley Penn Talks. We hope you enjoyed.